We'd like to get started on time. I'd like to first give everybody's welcoming everyone back. And I would like to additionally welcome you to the LSU Faculty Senate and to a new semester. And first and foremost, to thank you for your service. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mandy Lopez. My school, my home, is the School of Veterinary Medicine. I've been here almost 16 years. And I will first off ask your forgiveness in advance for my foibles, wobbles, atrocities that are sure to occur during my first attempt. But I will assure you that I intend to learn from all of my experiences and incorporate it to represent the our LSU faculty to the best of my ability. And with that, I will, before we go too far, I would like to ask for a moment of silence to remember those who were lost to violence, both locally and away, and impacted our nation. I would also like a moment of silence for our fearless leaders that we've lost this year that did their best throughout their careers to drive compatibility and peace and community throughout our state. So if you don't mind, a brief moment. Thank you. All right, with that, I would like to introduce the executive committee. That would be Professor Joan King, who is the vice president, Professor Fabio Del Piero, who is the secretary, Rosanta Chakravarti, who is the member at large, Ken McMillan, not last or least, previous immediate past president, and then Julia Lettis is also our member at large, but she's unable to make it today. Oh, for heaven's sake. And the person behind the curtain, yes, Susanna Knoll, who is instrumental to attempt to keep this on track and moving forward. Before we go also too far, I would like to acknowledge Professor Ken McMillan for his outstanding and tireless leadership over the last 2 years as president and 6 or 7 years as vice president before that. So, if you don't mind. All right. So, let's first announce the proxies. Are there any proxies or alternates that have not been sent to here to Ms. Knoll? I'll list those that I have. Xiao Chun Wu for Theta Daniels Race, Fabio Del Piero for Juan Martinez, Joseph Gregoria for Michael Banks, Will Monroe for Jeff Brooks, Don Ho Sam for Doug Gilman, and Stephen Shipman for Julia Lettis. Are there any others? All right, thank you. We do our roll by means of sign-in. You will find your name on a list in the back next to your nameplate. Please do sign in to record your attendance.
I didn't find it. My name, I'm a new one, so I'm not there.
Oh, dear.
But I signed it. I signed you up.
Okay, well, good. You will be accounted for.
Thank you.
All right, are there, now we'll introduce our guests. We'll start with the front. Go ahead.
Thank you, man.
You are.
Welcome back. I know that Dan's got a longer presentation about deferred maintenance. I just want to share with you that this is the best budget year we've had at the state level in 10 years. That means that the previous 9 years we were cut, and now we've held steady and got a little bit of new revenue. In discussions with the governor, he wants to put more revenue into the institutions, and in higher education, to begin building back what was taken out. And that is indeed our goal. Our goal with the governor, and our goal with it after the election, going into the legislative session. It's one thing to be flat, it's another thing to actually get revenues that you can handle mandated costs. And once again, the two biggest issues that we want to tackle are mandated costs, fixed costs, and salary increases. That remains the top two things on our agenda. The enrollment is holding steady about, that looks like it's going to be right about where it was last year. That's because we have a junior year class that was down about 700-800 students. It was the Denham Springs flood year. It was also the 30% tops reduction with the uncertainty. So they only got 70% of their tops. So we ended up getting a lot less students in that junior class. It's working its way out of the system. The two freshman classes are the two largest we've ever had. So last year was the largest. This year it's going to come in right around 6,200. And it's the most academically accomplished class. We went from an average 3 as it stands right now, I mean, this is a little bit fluid, but a 3.67 GPA on average to a 3.70 GPA. The ACT went up again, so it's right about 26, up from about a 3.56. So that's what it looks like right now. Students are still paying the fees. They're still rolling into class right now, and we'll know a lot more on the 14th day. This is what, Stacy, this is day 4. The capital campaign over the summer, we broke through the halfway point, $750 million. If you remember 2011, the entire capital campaign was $750 million. This capital campaign now is pushing about $790. And we've got a lot of momentum. We're about 100 to 150 million ahead of where we thought we'd be at this time. And so there is a lot of momentum. And to point out, the last capital campaign was about 60-40 athletics to academics. This past year, we were 70%. We raised nearly $200 million system-wide. But 70% of that funding went to academic side of campus, and 28% went to athletics. So we believe that's going to be completely inverted from the last capital campaign, and the academic side is going to be the true beneficiary of this capital campaign. So you'll hear a lot more about this as the year goes on. Capital projects with the last state budget, we probably fared better than we have in easily a decade, with the one exception of the $55 million for the College of Engineering match that matched the 55 that we raised to build that facility. We have about $48 million in capital construction from the state, which includes the art studios. And anybody work in the art studios? Yeah. Bless you. If you haven't seen the art studios, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's about what is it, 15 million? 16 million, with 2 million that are given to us from Roger Ogden, who helped bump that priority up on the governor's list. So if you see Roger Ogden, you need to really thank Roger Ogden for his help on that. Also, the Huey P. Long is about 22 million to really get to work on fixing what we should have fixed a long time ago. Ag science, the ag incubator, the food incubator, 7 million for the ag food incubator. So almost $50 million in capital construction. And I really thank the Commissioner Darden and the governor for a lot of that came in the supplemental budget, the offset supplemental budget. We hope to see more of that because they are running a surplus of about $300 million. And that's a real $300 million. And we're going to work with the governor, and we're going to work with Commissioner Darden to make sure that they don't see that surplus as being something they need to get rid of in terms of giving it back. That's how we ended up in the situation we were in over a decade ago when we got rid of the Stelly tax. It blew a $1 billion hole in our budget that we never recovered from until last year on the big sales tax fight. But we lived with that $1 billion hole, in the same rationale that you're hearing a little bit of was, well, we've got a surplus, so we ought to just give it back. And then we gave $1 billion back to everybody, and then we hit a recession, and we had a $1 billion hole that we had to live with for almost 10 years. And every year we went in, that's why we talked about cuts all the time. Staving off the type of cuts that we were looking at, the worst in the United States. it's Alaska-type cuts, if you're paying attention to what's happening in Alaska. That's what we were living with for about 5 straight years, going into the legislative session. We're going into this legislative session with a solid budget. Now the sales tax issue is going to surface again, but it doesn't surface again until the year 2025. That's when it falls off the cliff, and we go back into a budget reduction discussion, assuming they don't plug the hole. And I would assume they would be working to plug that hole 5, 6 years from now. So we're off to a great start. This freshman class is the most diverse freshman class we've ever had. Highest achieving, most diverse. Our campus average, if you take our Hispanic population and our African American population, on average our campus is about 19.5%. This freshman class is 30%. And it's the largest honors college class, and it's the largest first generation Pell class. So keep that in mind with many of your students. This is for us to grow as a state and us to grow as a nation. We got to address the closing the gap issue between the underrepresented population and the ones who have been traditionally getting the type of college education that we've known about for decades and decades, even a century or more. So this class is a really special class. And we're 101% full in our residence halls. By 1%, I mean we had to leave 2 floors open in Kirby Smith. We had to fill up 2 of the floors. We had to put the excess, which means we've got more students on campus, maybe 1,300 to 1,400 more students than we've ever had living on campus, which students who live on campus retain better and they graduate higher numbers. And that's what we're hoping that we can take this class and go ahead and break the records that we had last year that we set on graduating the most students that we've ever graduated, and that's the most African American students, Hispanic students, first generation students, veteran students, female, male, every group that we broke the record last year. We hope to keep doing that. So our growth is on the horizon. Stacy, just an update on online.
Same. We're excited, and I'll talk to you a little bit about those challenges, but doing fantastically well, hitting every target actually exceeding every target we had set in their enrollment plan. So very good news.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Questions you have for me? Yes.
So the last act I had, in fact, was in the exec committee, was to interview the PR strategic communication candidates. And I have unfortunately seen us not hire people for the HRM position and the campus safety officer that we tried a year ago. What's the status of these searches, and why are we having so much trouble filling them?
The strategic communication, we are at the decision's going to come out. We're gathering the information from the people that interviewed the last 2 candidates. That's going to come out any day now, and we'll need to negotiate with the individual that surfaced to the top. Human resources.
I'll be talking about that as part of my presentation.
Okay. Campus police, we're down on a number of officers because they've been getting picked off after training because of the pay, the civil service issue. So we've had to go to the civil service to get a special exemption. You want to share that to pay better?
Right, and we have been able to enhance certainly our police officers' pay, which has certainly helped with recruitment and retention. With regard to the Associate Vice President for Public Safety position, that was a new position that we were filling, and from a budgetary standpoint, we just determined that we could not move forward with filling it at this time. We certainly hope to in the coming year or 2.
It was a budget decision that we made that we didn't have the resources to create a new position that would oversee all the campuses, because we have chiefs of police at every campus. The false alarm that experienced in Coates was indeed a false alarm, but we appreciate the staff member that noticed somebody wearing a gun going into the building. The individual should have known better. It's a former police officer of ours who now works in the AG's office, the Attorney General's office. and he was invited in to talk to a group of faculty and just decided to take his weapon with him. The individual noticed it, and we had to go into lockdown until we had cleared the building and found out exactly what the problem was. I encourage all of you to pay attention to the signs that are in each classroom for different types of, I would say, emergency scenarios, from a tornado to an active shooter. Unfortunately, when we were meeting with the chancellors, actually the day before, we spent an hour on active shooter issues. There have been over 250 in this country this year already. And we need everybody's eyes and everybody's help. And this is a national crisis in this country. Can we stop it? We're going to try everything we can to protect everybody all the time. And we are a gun-free campus, and we have beaten bills back time and time again that allow us to stay gun-free campus. And there was a bill even in the Mississippi legislature last year that prohibited the institutions in Mississippi from banning guns at sporting events. I mean, it would immediately wipe out the refereeing profession.
Yes. I just wanted to make a comment about that situation. Coates Fall, my building is next to it. And I had a chance to interact while it was happening with some of the campus police that were right outside. And I just wanted to give a real thumbs up. They were very professional, very friendly. They listened. Just first-rate response.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that. I was real impressed with that.
Thank you. And you're going to see a number of safety messages coming out, and we have a list of things. We just want people from using the app, the safety app, to other things. We're just going to send out a couple every week just about safety tips on campus. We don't want to alarm anybody, but we want everybody to be armed with the right information so that you have access to the right. Everybody has access to the app, the phone calls, the numbers, and things that we can always do to keep campus safer and more safe. It is what it is. When I told our chancellors, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And campuses are targets just like schools are targets. And until we address this national crisis in the appropriate way, we're going to have to worry about these things all the time. So thank you for your comments, and I'll let Mandy take it over.
Well, thank you, and my apologies for my foible. Don't say I didn't warn you. So just get it over with, I guess. That was our president, King Alexandria. All right, now moving on with the introductions. Let's start in the back. Please introduce yourself a little bit. Sorry.
Kevin Cope from the Association of Louisiana Faculty Senates and the AAUP.
I'm Phil Hemmerth, College of Human Sciences and Education.
Let's see. Are we? Yeah, go ahead.
Brian Ainsworth, Campus Federal Credit Union.
Sam Bentley, Vice President for the Office of Research and Economic Development.
Emily Hatfield, Office of Academic Affairs. Stacia, Haynie, Academic Affairs.
Hi, Rick Simmons, Information Technology.
Jake Cassidy, Academic Affairs.
Tyler Carney, Finance and Administration.
All right, thank you. And
Layzell, Finance and Administration.
all right, is that everyone? All right, thank you all for the introduction. And then we do need to consider the minutes, which were, I think, distributed, well, they were distributed yesterday by email. Are there any immediate corrections or comments on the minutes from our last meeting? Hearing none, you can forward any that you come across to Susanna, and we will incorporate those. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes? Levant, Rucola, and a second? Something? All right, all those in favor? All right, so moving on to the President's report. Thank you all again for being here and for your service. It has been an extraordinarily busy summer for the faculty Faculty Senate Executive Committee, who served on numerous administrative searches, met numerous times. Some of the, and I won't enumerate everything that we've served on, but we have served on committees in virtually every aspect of the university over the summer, one for all of us. The one thing that or several things that we do have at the top of our list and have started the process is working through the Faculty Senate bylaws and constitution to update, streamline, contemporize, I'm not sure. It hasn't been done in a bit, and so we will be working through that. That will be led by past President Ken McMillan. We are also serving and contributing to the discussion on PS 104-109, a finding of unsatisfactory job performance for permanent memo 35. So that is something that we hope to be working with the Office of Academic Affairs on. We're also working on an academic freedom policy. That's been, I think, in the works for close to a year now. So we're hoping to sort of dislodge that for where it's become stuck and move it forward once again. So on a broader side, first I'll touch on the things that are not quite as flattering, perhaps, and have contributed to some slightly jaundiced public opinion. And that, in part, you've heard about the litigation surrounding the Greek activities that have resulted, primarily hazing, that's resulted in serious illness or injury or worse. I'm happy to report that the Greek task force is populated by a full membership. They recently elected a chair and are actively working with the LSU administration, faculty, students, and members of the public to establish expectations and standards for behaviors, activities, etc. Relatively recently, and in around 2018, Louisiana legislature, as you know, created a number of laws, including the Max Gruber Act, that makes hazing illegal. Notably, and unfortunately, in late July, the judge allowed the allegations of a Title IX violation, LSU Title IX violation, to go through. This was alleged by Max Gruber's parents, and they are saying that the sanctions for hazing between sororities and fraternities are different, meaning that they are less serious, I guess, perhaps, for the sororities, or there's a greater tolerance, I guess that's a better way of putting it, for the fraternities. So more on that later. I know a little more than that.
Maybe just comment on that.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, it surprised us that the judge didn't throw that out, because what they're saying is that we weren't tough on the guys, and we were just tough on the sororities. It's not the case at all. At the time of the Max Gruber incident, we had 15 fraternities and sororities on some sort of suspension or probation. Of the 15, one was a sorority. So we had a little more than a third of our entire fraternities on some sort of suspension or probation. So if you just look at the facts of it, we're getting criticism from alumni that we're harder on the fraternities. And we just let the sororities. So I believe they added this to the lawsuit to get national attention, to make it a federal issue instead of being a state issue. But we think that this is not, that it won't hold out. And currently we have about the same number on suspension and probation. And I do think the one sorority is off probation, and it's nothing but fraternities that are on suspension and probation.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification and addition. It is notable that PM 80, prohibition of hazing, went into effect in October 18. Additionally, an addition or addendum, anyway, a revision of the Student Code of Conduct, Section 3.4, makes it, conveys some protection for students who seek medical attention for those in need, either for any variety of reasons, even if they are perhaps in violation of the Student Code of Conduct. So to help with reporting and getting the attention or medical care that some might need, and the others may feel hesitant to get that for them. So suffice it to say that things are underway and certainly protections are in place, and I assume and I have confidence that they will continue to grow and things will become better as we go from here. On another less than flattering note, the graduate student fees are at LSU. The LSU graduate fees are among the highest in the nation. I guess this came out early. Oh, look, just today. Excellent. So it is also the recent subject of a rather negative report in Science. And I was supplied with a calculation by our own former Senator, Kashan Maite, from the College of Coast and Environment, and he supplied the following notes. So a student that is on a stipend of $24,000, meaning a research stipend, a research assistant stipend, an average of $864 to $8,640 a year in tuition is paid, $11,520 in overhead, this is from the grant, and the student pays $4,200 in fees for a total of $24,360 for a $24,000 stipend. So clearly there's work to be done, and I know that the Provost will be presenting some of the plans for the future to work toward a more equitable fee scale. Many of you were on campus, and most not if not all, received the text about an armed intruder. We were all rather shocked and alarmed, reasonably so. And fortunately, everything came to a quiet halt with a bit of an investigation. Nonetheless, some, including myself, were a bit flummoxed by the run, hide, fight. Everything's open to interpretation, and in a crowd of overachieving academics, who knows what could happen. However, it is standard language for emergency message emergency messaging. So, therefore, some additional training has been requested and will probably be underway. If you do Google it or YouTube, you will find a number of very helpful videos, including those from the University of Florida. So, more on that later.
And can I?
Absolutely.
The police department, in addition to the videos, they are more than welcome to come and give in-person training on active shooter. And in fact, after the day after the incident, they had 15 new requests for training from campus units. So just putting that out there. The videos are in fact a good resource, but if you're looking for a little more personal treatment, contact the PD. If you go on their website, there is a drop-down box for trainings, and safety trainings.
That could apply to your department.
For the department, for the Senate as a whole, for however you would want to do it.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. Well, something good comes out of every bad, I suppose. All right. The Elsevier standoff continues in various forms around the nation. It's pretty pronounced in California, where I know some of my colleagues are boycotting their associate editor and reviewer positions to sort of force Elsevier to change their ways, I suppose. A faculty advisory committee has been formed for determining the number for the subscriptions that will be continued. So we will request a report from that committee later in the semester, obviously after they've had a bit of time to get some work done. And but feel free to reach out to that committee. And again, it is the faculty advisory committee to the library. And numbers will be posted. I will get those for you after our first meeting to give some feedback about those subscriptions to be continued. In the meantime, you may have noticed the interlibrary loan service has had some recent changes. They seem to be very, very good. I recently had to use it, and it self-populates and everything. It was very nice. Nonetheless, if you are using that, and I assume you will be, please feel free to reach out to Stanley Wilder. I suspect they will appreciate. I'm sort of stepping ahead, I guess, but But all feedback is good, so please feel free to share any of your experiences with that. And like I said, my recent experience was very positive, though there was a 24-hour turnaround, which was too long for what I needed. And finally, in some forums, you may have noticed a rather unsettling tweet released by our very own LSU football. And the tweet was intended to be a package deal for some lucky winner who would get some meals with the team and then sideline passes. Unfortunately, there was a little asterisk at the bottom and said women could not participate. So that was a bit of a setback. And unfortunately, it was quickly picked up by the Twitter community where it was first dispatched, and including ESPN's Sarah Spain, and even made it to the Associated Press. Well, the FSEC has been assured that this was a bonehead mistake, and that was immediately corrected, and the individual responsible, educated, and appropriate oversight institute, which are all very good steps. I still might suggest that there be a spot on the University Council on Gender Equity for a member of the football group. Recent administrative positions have been filled, and I won't go into that at present because I think the others that will be presented in turn, so I don't want to present that ahead of time. The adjudication committee, as you'll remember, was, shall we say, reformed, and some changes made to the mission and so on that were ultimately approved. Dr. McMillan has been working tirelessly, and I do mean tirelessly, to repopulate that committee. I believe we are almost there. Yes? Oh yeah. All right. Well, progress is slow sometimes, but nonetheless, it will be hopefully populated this semester, and we will be working tirelessly to get that up and going once again. The Benefits Advisory Committee is also organizing for the semester, and I understand it preparing a resolution for next month, so more on that next month. So I do want to pause for a moment to remind you that the Committee on Committees is the current standing committee and mechanism by which we populate standing committees in the Faculty Senate. So if you do get an email from the Committee on Committees, and specifically from the chair, Jennifer Baumgartner, please realize it's a thing, it's real. So I know the Committee on Committees, it sounds like a bit of spam, but it's not. And we really need you to respond to those emails. We certainly know everyone's very, very busy and overcommitted, but it is genuinely important for there to be meaningful faculty representation on not only the standing committees, but other committees throughout the university. So we really appreciate that, and please don't dump it into your spam or send it there. Dr. McMillan, as I mentioned, will be forming an ad hoc committee to revise, update, and otherwise streamline faculty bylaws. As I mentioned, we'll be working to populate that committee, so if you have a self-nomination or a friend nomination, or maybe a not-so-friend nomination, please feel free to pass it on to Dr. McMillan, Susanna, or myself, so we can get moving forward. And finally, speaking of bylaws, if you are unaware of your college bylaws or faculty policy committee, now is the time to act. So it is absolutely important for meaningful self-governance that you do have bylaws within your college and that you have an active faculty policy committee. So if you have never heard of these, you might want to track down someone who may have historical knowledge. We have been identifying those faculty policy committee chairs throughout the colleges. I think we have quite a few. There's still a few missing. And I will hopefully be convening a small meeting of the faculty policy chairs later in the semester once we've identified them. If you can help us with this, please do. And hopefully there are some bylaws sitting somewhere on a shelf that you can dust off. The School of Veterinary Medicine and the Business School have templates that are also very useful and active. The School of Veterinary Medicine recently revised ours. So with that, I will conclude the President's report. Are there any comments or questions? All right. So now, moving on, I'd like to welcome Provost Stacia Haynie to address the Senate.
Thank you so much, Mandy. I'm so excited to be here. I see a lot of very familiar faces, and I also see some new ones, so I'm really looking forward to getting to know you. And over the course of the year, I'm going to have to take a picture to tweet you out here shortly, so I have this here. I know last year I stood here and told you I've never been more excited about LSU and where we're headed, but I'm more excited this year than I was last year. And part of that, many of the things that the President mentioned in terms of resources that have been invested, again, in this institution. But I'm especially excited because we are controlling our own destiny, which is really our path forward. And so when you hear us talking repeatedly about recruiting, and you heard the President's excitement about our freshman class, we have to be able to have an enrollment plan and be able to have revenues that we can predict from that and be able to set our priorities and move them forward. And I'm so excited that we are hitting every single marker we have helped set out there for ourselves. So the freshman class, what last year, of course, as the President said, was the largest in our history, most academically well qualified, most diverse, and you think, how do you top that? Well, we did. So this year, again, is the largest freshman class in our history, the most academically qualified, the most diverse, everything you would want, but it also had more net new revenue than we predicted, even better. Now, we are here to educate students, so we are primarily thrilled that we actually have students to populate our classrooms. So exceptionally good news on all fronts. Now, the other thing is, of course, as we said, once we have these students here, we're going to ensure that we keep them. And you have heard me say about how we're going to stalk these students and how it's called intrusive advising, so don't use that term. You're going to hear me continue to talk about that. And one of the things that we are implementing, and first let me just step back and just say a collective thank you to everyone in this room for that freshman class. It is not an enrollment management responsibility, it is a collective responsibility to bring that class in. And I want to say it's especially to the credit of our faculty, because we just got back the survey responses that we did to help drive our management plan and our communication plan on what are the critical factors that students and their parents use in order to make their decision about where they will attend college. And both in-state, out-of-state, students, parents, in both cases, the number one factor that drives the choice of where a student is going to go to college is the quality of the academic experience. That's the number one thing. We didn't always message that correctly. We have shifted that, and you can see the results. When we tell our story, again, we control our own destiny. We tell our story about the quality of the experience that our students are going to have here. We are seeing that response. And you deliver. That's the only way we're able to tell that message. By the way, guess what was the least critical factor? Athletics. Don't tell athletics. the least important factor. So thank you for your collective effort for what you do in our classrooms, and also for those of you that participate in those recruiting activities. They happen all year long. For the very first time ever this summer, we had a kickoff event, which those are when the students and their parents come to our campus, and we'd never done one in the summer. So these are prospective college students, and we were hoping to get maybe 650 students sign up. We had 1,500. So again, thank you for everything you do, because when those students are here, we get them to our faculty. You're our best ambassadors. Again, if we want to put a spotlight on the quality of our academic experience, it's going to be on the quality of our faculty. Now, once we get them here, we're going to stalk them, and one of the ways that we are doing that is by implementing what is state-of-the-art in terms of software that helps us to bring data to bear on the students who are at most of need for intervention. And so this year, thanks to IT and their support, we will be implementing EAD, which is a software platform that takes data on our students, and it allows us to know where that student or which of those students are most at risk, and we're able to direct resources to those students. The other great thing about EAD is it communicates to students where they live, actually where we all live, on this thing, right? We know we had a first ever advising summit this summer. Some of you may have participated in that. It was a terrific, really focused day on what we do well, what we can do better. And one of the things we know, you know, is that students don't read those emails, right? Well, one of the reasons they don't read those emails is because they get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them from us. So we're going to be doing a communication audit to really carefully look at our communication with our students. If you're receiving, I mean, it becomes like those Banana Republic emails that come in that you can't get rid of, right? It's just another one. So this will allow us to be very targeted in the communication with the student, and they'll get an email that will say, that's my daughter, by the way, on her graduation photo from LSU, that will say, you missed your advising appointment, press here to reschedule. We have concerns, you need to come in here, press to get right, so we will be communicating with them here. We're going to be rolling that out in a pilot program with UCFY, HSS, HSE, Art and Design, and Ag. So those advisors will be using this tool. We'll learn throughout the year, and then we will have it throughout the campus. And ultimately, it's a terrific dashboard that when you bring it up, you know if that student is in a green space, they're doing great, they're in a yellow space, or they're in red. What we especially need from faculty is as you recognize a student is not attending or a student is struggling, and please give assignments early and often. You're seeing that they're struggling with their grades. Let the advisor in your college know that you have concerns. Contact them and let them know, because we don't get those grades until midterm. The other thing is, please turn in your midterm grades. I will stalk you if you aren't turning in those midterm grades, because that's truly the only concise data point we have. And we know that's too late, which is why if you're recognizing something early, please let us know. And it's one of the conversations I want to have with the Senate about what we can do collectively as a faculty to have earlier information on students who are struggling in your classes, so we can intervene very quickly and get them to the resources that they need. So we're very, very excited about that. The President mentioned online, I truly cannot express how appreciative I am of the faculty who are working with Stacia Thackerberry to produce the content online for us. This fall, we will surpass 1,000 students. She is going to be above her number, but she won't tell me because she wants to surprise. But it's fantastic. The really exciting thing, again, with the help of IT, in October, we will launch the first ever undergraduate programs here at LSU. And that may seem like a dog kind of thing, but it was, that is a task. You have to build all those gen ed courses. Thank you to all of you who helped. You have to find, all of the prereqs or whatever is required, and there's just phenomenal work that's being done. So I'm so incredibly appreciative to all of you who are a part of that. Now, one of the other things that we are working on, and we'll be working with IT on this, hoping to have that available ideally next fall, but certainly by the summer of 21, is to align our term structures so that students on our campus who are paying our tuition and fees would still be able to get into the online courses in the 7-week module at the beginning of the semester or the end, or could take them in summer. Those of us that follow summer enrollments know those have been on the decline, and that's a challenge for us because we build in a certain amount in that budget for that. So we want to make sure that our students can take those online courses and we can leverage those economies of scale. So I'll be in touch, working in concert with the Faculty Senate Executive Committee on what those challenges are going to present to us as a campus. But we're very excited about that because it will allow a student, if I'm going to be a faculty member teaching Introduction to American Government for online, students on the LSU campus can also take that. And we know from our own research that these are very popular courses. The ones we put online on our campus are very popular, and over the course of a student's 4 years, a traditional full-time freshman over the course of their 4 years, about 30% of them are going to have an online course at some point or another. So the more we can make sure that we're leveraging everything we're doing to benefit our students, the better off we're going to be. So really very excited about that. There's also tremendous work happening in online across all of our campuses. Certainly in, again, my almost 30 years is the only type of, among the most impressive collaborations among our LSU campuses. And so that's been really very exciting. And in addition to that, tremendous work with our industry partners. Instead of those individuals going out and hiring other people to do their training, we can do that for you. So we're just having, and then, by the way, would you like to also support this particular program we have on our campus? So tremendous work that's going on there that we're very excited about. Now, I do want to mention just a few things that that Mandy talked about. I do want to, the dean searches are currently going on, so the search committees for HSS and HSE will be meeting next week or very shortly thereafter to review the pool of candidates, invite the individuals to our campus, so we'll be having those interviews shortly. We will be putting together the search committee for the dean of the graduate school, and I will be working with Mandy to ensure faculty senate representation on that committee. In addition, the Information Technology, IT, has presented their roadmap to us, and they want input from faculty on academic technology. So we will, again, be working with Mandy to put together a committee that will be focused on that. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. We certainly want to make sure that we have broad representation about building our roadmap on what that's going to look like. The other thing that I want to mention, just a few things. We have for a number of years, and I certainly as dean, Todd Queen and I were trying to build a film program across colleges where we had a film concentration in liberal arts, they had a concentration in theater, and we wanted to build a film degree. And the faculty, God bless them, worked for about 8 months building the curriculum, and it would have been sort of faculty across the whole campus. If you're wanting to do marketing and tax credits in film, the business college could have participated. If you wanted to do digital effects, computer science and art and design could have done it. So we wanted this sandbox to play in, and we got it all designed, and we took it to academic affairs, and they said, well, we don't have any place you can put that. And so we were just, academic affairs, well, now I'm them. So we are building it, and we are going to have that sandbox. So I will again be working with Mandy to identify some of the faculty senate members who will work with us to build in. Now, we're not talking about taking interdisciplinary programs that already exist within your colleges. That is not what we're doing. We're looking initially at undergraduate programs where faculty across colleges, for example, Science and HSS had talked about building a forensics program where it would be CSI for real. But where is that going to be housed, and why are we going to put all the effort, but somebody else is going to get the degree credits? And so we are going to be building that, and I'm not a patient person. I would love to have it on the September Board of Supervisors meeting. I've been told that's a little aggressive. So we're hoping at least for October, but we'll be getting the faculty together. Of course, the faculty will be the ones driving that. We will have a program director or chair, whatever the faculty decide we're going to title this unit, who will report up to 3 deans so that there's truly across college buy-in. This isn't going to be seen as, and those will rotate, so there's constantly new, fresh eyes coming to support it. So we'll be in touch with that, very excited about that. The other thing that Mandy mentioned were the fees for our students. And I want to be very clear, there are certain fees that students are going to be paying. UREC, Health Center, every student pays those fees. The fees that have been so painful, they're all painful, but the fees that have been painful for especially our students who have tuition exempted, are the student excellence fees. And those titrated up very, very quickly over the years where we had the worst of the budget cuts. And I know it has been a priority of President Alexandria, it certainly has been mine, And Dan and I have identified some sources to begin titrating those down, and we hope to implement that in the spring. We will be back with you with specifics. I want to obviously meet with those graduate students. It's about $2.9 million, and so we don't have all of that now. We would have to do it over time, but we hope to be able to do that over the next 2 to 3 years. Again, this is why recruiting, retention, and online are so critical for us, so that we can make decisions about where we invest those resources. I also want to give a shout out to Malcolm Richardson, who has been a good partner in identifying sources of funds to redirect toward this, at least in the interim. So he's been a really important key partner in that. It's important to me that we address that. Now, be very clear that that's not every fee a student's going to be paying. Those are those student excellence fees that titrate it up very quickly. And this will be for students who have their tuition exempted. So these would be our TAs, our research assistants. Those individuals, we hope to begin that for those individuals in the spring. There is still an academic excellence fee that students were paying long before those student excellence fees showed up. That again, you can only spend it once, and you heard the president talk about the priority of faculty raises. That is certainly absolutely a priority. So how quickly we can, again, address other pots of those expenses for our graduate students, including healthcare, that is on our agenda to be addressed, but the immediate need we know that affects them most critically are those excellence fees. So I apologize for being silent on that, but until we had a plan, I wanted to be sure that we were coming to you with what the solution is going to be.
Let me just add the uniqueness of our situation because of the fees. We're almost like a West Coast state when it comes to fees, where tuition is unconstitutional. In California, in Arizona, in Nevada, I don't know about Oregon, but that region, constitutionally, tuition is unconstitutional. So everything's in the fees. Out of UCLA, everything was, Cal State Long Beach, 9 years, everything was in the fees. We're kind of like that because we're the only state, and the report doesn't mention this. They compare us to basically states east of the Mississippi, which is without looking west. But it is a huge problem because we need a 2/3 vote from our state legislature, because we're the only state in the country where our legislature thinks tuition is a tax. And we need a 2/3 vote to increase tuition, unlike anybody else in the United States. And those of you that know politics, and those that have been to California, they need a 2/3 vote to pass the budget. That's why they never have a budget. They never have a budget on time. It's almost impossible to get a 2/3 vote. That's why we've had to rely on getting fees, or just getting fee autonomy, which we gained a window of fee autonomy for 3 years, and this is the last year. And to earn that back, we've got to convince the legislature next year. Otherwise, we don't have any recourse at all if they were to cut us. Unlike our peers that have both tuition and fee authority that we deal with. So we are in a set of handcuffs that nobody else is in as a state. And we got to somehow remove those handcuffs so we can control our own destiny. But the fees are a consequence of not being able to do what our peers have done all over the country. And you have to look almost to the West Coast to understand the fee comparison to our situation.
And again, I am so optimistic. I truly mean that, because regardless of what's going to be thrown at us, we have to be able to find that path forward. That's our job. And I am so excited that everything we have set as the plan to ensure we're on that path, we're succeeding. And it's the first time in literally my 30 years that I've been that confident that those really foundational pieces that you've got to get in place, that we're handling those and doing those just exceptionally well with just phenomenal leaders in place to guide us there. Lastly, and I know I'm not going to steal Sam's thunder, but again, part of when we talk about why students are coming here and the quality of the academic experience, it's driven by the fact that we are a research institution. And when I talk to students and their parents at those kickoff events, and I say to them, look, here's our faculty, and they're producing the knowledge and the creative and scholarly works that are the marketplace of ideas, and then they go straight into our classrooms. And they share that with our students. They're working with the people who are producing the knowledge. Now, students could go to those teaching institutions, I literally do that, and those faculty are teaching what our faculty are producing. And we just think cut out the middle people and have them work directly with our faculty. It just works better. And we know because those faculty are coming, those students are coming here because they want that. Their parents want that. So it's absolutely imperative that we support the research infrastructure. And again, you have to have resources to do that. How are we going to bring resources to bear? We're going to bring resources to bear because we are going to recruit those students. We are going to retain them, and we're going to bring net new revenue in through an online stream. So research is expensive. We have to produce revenue to support the research, which is an exciting thing. And I'm thrilled, again, that we also are meeting the president challenged us to set what are going to be your goals. And we set a goal to increase our research expenditures. It's a terse measure, it's only one, but it's one way we can measure the health of what we're doing. And we met that this year, and we are on target in terms of proposals and awards for next year. And forgive me if I saw your lead. So I could go on because you can tell I'm pretty excited, but I'm not. I'm going to take your pic so I can tweet you out as our amazing faculty, because you guys rock. All right, turn around here, you guys. And lastly, I just want to say, thank you for letting me have a reception. I especially wanted to say thank you to Ken, and I wanted to be able to have a reception for that because he's just been such a phenomenal partner for us, and he's been such an incredible advocate for you. And then also to welcome Mandy. Anybody who agrees to step into this deserves great admiration. And then also to thank each of you, because it is about faculty governance. And so it's critical that you have agreed to accept this responsibility, and I personally want to thank you for that. So please stay for that reception that we'll have, and I will turn it back over.
One quick little story. If my 80-year-old father can teach an online course at the University of Illinois, Education, Law, and Finance, then a lot more people can teach them than you think, because he is old school as it gets. He was asking last Christmas how he could put apps in his grandkids' stockings for Christmas.
All right. Thank you very much, Provost Haynie. We appreciate all that you do for us, including snacks. So everybody be sure to go to the reception afterward. We really are very grateful. All right, next up, Executive Vice President and CFO, Dan Layzell, who will touch on a few topics.
Sure, thank you. And before I start, I want to clarify that the Provost and I did not coordinate our outfits today. So, but anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes today. Mandy had asked me to come and touch on kind of where we are with regard to our deferred facilities maintenance. That's been a question on many people's minds, and kind of what our path forward is for, or plans for addressing that, as well as a couple of key personnel updates. Thank you very much. So before I start, for those who may not be familiar, the term deferred maintenance is really that. It's deferring planned and required maintenance for facilities and equipment because you don't have enough money in the budget. And that's certainly been the case as we've talked about for the past decade or so. On average, just to give you some numbers, the replacement value of the 205 academic and administrative support buildings that we have on campus, and that is excluding all the auxiliary facilities, residence halls and athletics and such, is about $2.5 billion. So if we had to build the campus from scratch, it would be $2.5 billion, probably a little more than that actually. And 6.4 million square feet to maintain across campus. Again, those are just our academic and administrative support buildings. Those facilities require, on average, if we want to just stay current with our maintenance, about $33 million a year in just regular upkeep and maintenance. We actually are invest about $17 million a year. So there's about $16 million of delta that continues to accumulate each year that adds to the deferred maintenance backlog. Just by way of comparison, if we were spending at the same level that our peers in the SEC and nationally were spending, we would be putting about $31 million a year toward it. So again, the budget, the budget issues that we've been dealing with for the past 10 years, which again look like they're turning the corner, have had not just a negative impact on our operating budgets, but certainly a negative impact on our ability to maintain our facilities to deliver our mission. Our current deferred maintenance backlog for those facilities on campus that I was referencing is $622 million. So that's the accumulated value of that delta that's built up over time. So what I've got here is, again, what's our path forward? Because clearly we can't continue on this path if we want to be able to offer the excellence that the Provost and the President were talking about for the students that we are trying to bring to campus, and we are bringing to campus. The gold bar that you see there is if we continue down the same path that we've struggled through and stumbled through the past 12 years, our deferred maintenance backlog would grow to $799 million over the next 5 years. Clearly, that's unacceptable. So, as you may remember, many of you, I'm sure, were participants in this. A couple of years back, we went through a very comprehensive strategic capital master planning process for the campus, looking at everything from facilities to parking to traffic to infrastructure under the ground, and really to get a good survey of where we currently are, and based on where we see ourselves going as a university, where we want to be. And a large part of that plan is focused on a very strategic approach to lowering our deferred maintenance backlog. So the purple bar represents what our plan calls for us to do over the next 5 years. As you can see, we're able to, if in fact we're able to stick to our plan and secure the funds that are necessary, we will lower our deferred maintenance backlog by 2025 to $517 million. Again, that's not perfect, but it's a far cry from $800 million. And again, would allow us to make a real dent in this backlog. This strategic capital plan is the basis of what our 5-year capital outlay request is going to be to the state. And that's going to our Board of Supervisors for consideration at the September meeting, and then we'll then go down to the state. Now, we're obviously not going to get all of that money at the same time. It's about $330 million that's going to be required over the next 5 years. But we do have, as the President noted, we do have strong support in the administration. They are keenly focused not just on higher education, but the state generally in terms of the deferred maintenance issues at state facilities across Louisiana. And they have a real priority not just in building new facilities, but in reinvesting in the facilities that we have currently. So we believe we've got a strong ally, certainly downtown. We have allies in the legislature who want to help us with this as well. And so, again, like the Provost, I feel very optimistic and hopeful that we're going to be able to make some real progress here. And again, have the kind of facility that we certainly want facilities we want to have. Yeah.
Can the budget surplus of the state be used for things?
Yes, yes. In fact, that's what they, because the surplus is one-time money, that's what they are statutorily obligated to do. Once they've put money toward the rainy day fund and the paying down the unfunded accrued liability for retirement systems, they basically are left with funding capital projects. And LSU, the system, has 61% of the deferred maintenance backlog for higher education across the state. So we've made the argument that we really deserve 61% of the funding that's going to be made available for addressing deferred maintenance backlogs. And they're open to that conversation.
You might point out, by comparison, we have 22% of the square footage in higher education, but we have 61% of the deferred maintenance. And we're old, we're just old. We're a lot older than certainly community colleges don't have. They just built. Yeah. So we disproportionately, and that's one argument we use this year to get what we were able to get out.
Just a few other details about this plan over the next 5 years. I'm not going to get down into the weeds in terms of specific projects, but I will tell you that there are 30 major projects represented in this plan over the next 5 years, and that would be capital projects that are $1 million or more in cost. There are a lot of other smaller capital projects, such as window replacements and roofing repairs. But just a few examples of the projects that are included in there. The science building, the new science building, the library, QEP Long Field House, obviously Studio Arts is included in there. So, you know, again, we feel very positive about where things are going. There's no guarantees, as you can appreciate, but again, we feel that we've got a very solid plan and certainly a good narrative to share. Yes?
Part of the discussion for maintenance be of accessibility for people in wheelchairs.
Yes, and there's an accessibility component to our master plan. Yes.
Forgive me for bringing up the elephant in the room, but the impact of us potentially losing the athletic funding, the $7 million to $11 million, or however much it is, where are we going to lose that money? Is it going to impact this? Is it going to impact this?
Well, and let me clarify, you know, and that's certainly been in the news, and it's true. You know, during the budget crisis, the university did tap athletics for some funding. We're in conversations with them about just all of the funding that they are currently providing. Not all of it is going to go away. They will continue, and I'll give you an example. They currently put about $600,000 a year, they being athletics, income directly benefits classroom facilities and other facilities on campus. Those monies will remain. So we will continue to be able to do the classroom renovations that those funds that they support. The money that they will continue to pay the same costs that every other auxiliary enterprise does in terms of the overhead expenses. So we haven't finalized what that is. Are they going to be putting less in the institution than they have been? Yes, but frankly, you know, to echo what the provost was saying, you know, we need to be self-sufficient. We need to definitely be able to stand on our own feet and not have to rely on athletics or on the state for funding all of our needs. So this is just part of that self-reliance. But to answer your question specifically, you know, it will, again, given the amount of money that we currently put toward it, I don't see it having a significant impact or material impact on this plan moving forward.
It's not good PR though.
No.
All of us.
Well, and again, I mean, you
all
know,
the time.
yeah, I mean, and you know, and they certainly, you know, I will say this, you know, they have been good partners in supporting the university, and they continue to want to be good partners in supporting us. And certainly they want to be able to, you know, they see the value, as we do, of having an attractive campus, and certainly in having, having the high quality education that we provide at LSU continues. So, you know, they're going to continue to be a good partner, but again, you know, I think we're going to need to wean ourselves off of that dependence over time.
Did you want to touch on the recent hires and
The impending hires. Again, to answer your, to get your earlier question on HR. As you know, we had a search last semester in the spring for a Chief Human Resources Officer. We got to the end. We had 4 finalists. I will tell you there was very little consensus, no consensus on those finalists. And frankly, we did not feel that we had, among those finalists, we had people who could do a job, but not do the job at the level that we need here at LSU. And so rather than moving forward with making, just making a hire rashly, we decided to put it on pause. We went back to, over the summer, we regrouped with our search consultant who, they're on the hook to work with us until we find a successful candidate at no additional charge. And so we were very focused with them in saying, we want you to target senior HR professionals at R1 and R2 institutions, because they had not done that the first go-around. We had been pretty clear about it, but they had not been very, I would say, aggressive. So over the summer, they have been very aggressive in terms of reaching out directly to those individuals, identifying those who are interested in this opportunity. And a couple of weeks ago, the search committee that's chaired by Tony Lombardo got back together with the search consultant, and they went over the candidates that they have and the ones that they think they're going to be able to, additional ones are going to be able to attract. And our current time frame is to have finalists on campus by before Thanksgiving. So get that process, make an offer shortly thereafter, and my goal would be to have somebody in that position ready to start in January. In the interim, as you know, we've had some additional turnover in HRM. Gaston Reynoso went to the University of Houston to be their Chief Human Resources Officer, and Mimi Lee left to take an opportunity with a local bank. And again, these were great opportunities for both of them. Very happy for both of them. So in the interim, Tyler Carney, who will stand up, graciously accepted my invitation to embrace some professional development and be the Chief Human Resources Officer. You can tell by his smiling. He and Nikki Norton are continuing to lead the HR function. We're working very closely with Jane Cassidy in the Provost's office, obviously on academic matters, as we've always done. So we feel very good about where we are from an HR standpoint in terms of the management of our health plan, the management of our certainly our personnel policies and our hiring. So that's again, we feel we're in good shape until we get a permanent CHRO in place.
What about strategic communications?
I think you just said
We're meeting tomorrow, and that decision should be coming out very shortly.
And on the Chief Technology Officer, which is another vacancy that we have on campus since Andrea Ballinger left at the end of March. John Bourne has since been serving as the interim Chief Technology Officer. Again, all of you are familiar with John. He's been on campus, been providing service here for many years. Our plan is to start that search up in January. Again, trying to spread these out to not overload the search, the HR staff and others who will be serving on those search committees. So stay tuned. We'll be keeping you posted on that search.
And can you remind me again when the public safety officer search or position will open again?
I don't anticipate it will be this year, perhaps next year. I mean, right now that was a brand new position, and we're trying to focus on certainly filling. It's a critical position, obviously, but focusing on those existing vacancies.
All right. Any additional questions?
And again, thank you in advance for all of you who will be calling on to participate in these interviews over the next several months.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And thanks to Ken for serving on me.
Thank you very much. All right. Next up, I'd like to welcome to those, well, it's sort of a new welcome, right? Welcome to a new position. Vice President of ORED, our new Vice President of ORED, Sam Bentley.
Thank you very much, everyone. Great. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here with you. Thank you very much. I've been in the position for about 3 months. It's a permanent appointment, and probably, I know some of you Many of you may have never seen me before. So just to give you a little bit of background on where I come from. I graduated as an undergraduate from a land-grant university, University of Georgia. I went through, did graduate degrees in geology and oceanography. And I started out at LSU, actually, in 1999 in the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Sciences. Had the opportunity to move to St. John's, Newfoundland, to Memorial University in 2006. Did that, was recruited to come back to the Department of Geology and Geophysics in 2011, and have been here since then. And I've worked with reorganizing and directing the Coastal Studies Institute in the 2012 timeframe, and directed that for 5 years. Was Associate Dean for Research in the College of Science for 2 years before stepping in as interim at Stacia's request back in February of this year. So, I was asked to give just an overview of where I want us to go in terms of research and economic development. Some of you have already seen all of these slides, so what that means is that I'm consistent in my message. Okay, we'll go through just a few slides. I want to talk to you about what some of our plans are, and we have some old challenges and new directions that I plan for us to go with. So first of all, I think it would probably be fair a fair statement that you could find people on campus, or maybe if you'd gone to them 6 or 8 months ago or a year, they would say, well, what does the Office of Research and Economic Development do for me? Well, I am here to tell you that we're going to try to make this office into an entity that serves the entirety of the campus. And I'm going to take you through some of those ideas right now. Well, what do we do? Well, I've got a list of some of the things that we, some of our activities. At the end of each of these is the name of a person or a new hire that's going to be happening soon. We have 2 searches ongoing right now for new associate vice presidents in my office. So we support proposal development, whether it's training, workshops, learning how to produce the various types of documents to create research proposals. We have programs to provide internal funding. Steve Beck from Music, who's an associate vice president in ORED, serves that position. We help provide, we help identify opportunities for external funding. Some of you have been receiving notifications from me, not really, every week or so with new funding opportunities. We also take your ideas to business development. This is something that I think a lot of people on campus don't really know about. We provide a lot of services in terms of helping you develop and secure your own intellectual property and then market that as commercial enterprises. We also perform the vital roles. I'm the chief compliance officer for the campus in terms of various aspects of research compliance. This is a growing area that's increasingly more problematic in some ways. We also manage major research infrastructure, such as the Shared Instruments Facility and the Chemistry and Materials Building. CCT reports to me, the Center of the for Applied CAN-D, Applied Micro. Can't ever remember what CAN-D means for. Our light source out on the east side of town, and the other centers and institutes that do report to me. All of this is part of what the Office of Research does, and other duties assigned. And our biggest challenge is campus connections. It's helping you know what we can do for you. It's helping you know the value of the research enterprise. So let's talk about that for a little bit more. So campus connections, understanding the value, understanding the services that my offices provide, it's a critical thing for me to try to communicate to you. I want to establish the value of ORED to the entirety of LSU, and importantly, we want to build sponsored research and economic development in all aspects of the creative and scholarly enterprise. Actually, some of you may not know that my major was theater. So I had a minor in geology, so I come out of a profoundly liberal arts background. I did the actors training program at the University of Georgia. I never did any acting, really, but it was a lot of fun. From a long time back, I have some understanding of how how we all need to work together. And one of the ways that we are going to try to build this is through more dialogue. I was really surprised when I came in as an interim how little conversation there had been between my office and many of the colleges across campus. And we tried to fix that. We're making a bigger effort. We have amazing resources across campus, and if we can work together to utilize them to transfer ideas, to transfer knowledge, and very importantly to transfer money, then we can all do some great things together, even better than we're doing right now. So what's the landscape that this is coming out of? Well, the Office of Research and Economic Development more or less operates off of the indirect revenues that are generated from grants and contracts. And that is proportional to the expenditures. These are data that we report to NSF every year. And if you go back about a decade, at a best case scenario, our research expenditures campus-wide have been flat to declining with a fairly precipitous drop in 2017, a bit of a rebound. At the same time, our obligations to provide good service to you in terms of proposal development, to provide sort of industry standard compliance support for human subjects, for animal subjects, for research integrity, these have all been increasing. So you have flat source of funding with an increased cost. It's not a particularly good trajectory right there. So my objective, particularly if I want to stay in this office for more than just a couple of years, is to try to get these curves to diverge, and that's what we're up to. So intellectual property services are very, very important. We're doing great things. It's expensive. Tech parks, our incubators, again, these are very exciting services that we provide. They're expensive. And also, I would say that the funding programs that we've had, particularly in the last couple of years, have not been responsive to the entirety of faculty needs. In the present year, there was a cutback in some of the faculty summer support and stipend programs that have been really valuable to the humanities and the arts programs over the last several years. So I don't know what the right answer to that is. So what I've asked is the Council of Research, which is a board that provides advice to our office, to look at that and make recommendations on what we should be doing with the dollars that we can invest back in faculty. So why do we need to grow the research enterprise? Why can't we just shrink it? Well, there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of benefits that accrue to all of us if we undertake sponsored programs of some kind. Well, this type of activity brings direct revenue. Graduate education, either in the form of tuition that comes directly off of grants, or the dollars that are generated by our sponsored programs that go to indirectly support graduate students. Faculty can also have indirect returns in the form of dollars that come back to them off of grants. I think not everybody knows what a good source of discretionary income. So if you want to do a summer field trip to Germany to study filmmaking in the Weimar Republic during the 1920s and 30s, and you have indirect monies in your own account, you can do that. You can do whatever you want with it that's legal to spend state dollars on in Louisiana. So the new financial model that we all know about, that's tuition-centered, requires that the Office of the Research and Economic Development Enterprise be much more self-sustaining. So that's what we're moving towards. We still have to handle these unfunded mandates, like the cost of compliance, the services that we need to be providing to you for proposal development. And so to do these things, to support the faculty enterprise, to provide the services that we really need to as part of an R1 university, we have to grow. And based on the flat trajectory or declining trajectory of expenditures over the last decade, we either grow the research enterprise or we shrink and reduce our ability to support it. We can't stand still. So it's a kind of a challenging position to be in, but we're ready to deal with that. So we've set a target of a growth of about 25% from 2019 dollars over the next 5 years. This amounts to 5% increase in 2019 expenditures over the campus per year. So these are data, these are linear projection over the next 5 years. Now, I agree with everybody. Anybody might say, well, there are other metrics for success in research. And you're absolutely correct. But to support this enterprise that we need to support as an R1 university, we have to undertake this trajectory. So how does this break out if we just sort of uniformly distribute this increase in revenue across colleges? I don't think it's actually going to be uniformly distributed, but if we did, it would mean, for example, science would have about a $1.2 million increase year over year. Engineering, similar kind of number. Vet med, somewhere in this range, about $350,000 coastal environment. But there's one example. I was telling you that we're not well connected in terms of sharing information and understanding. Does anybody know what SNC SRT is? Or actually, raise your hand if you don't know what it is. Okay, that unit accounts for almost 30% of our campus research expenditures in revenue. That is, I call it the Stevenson family of research enterprise. It's a group that's managed by Jeff Moulton. They do really amazing work all around the world. Just as a metric of what they do, a lot of counterterrorism training, research on counterterrorism. Jeff sent me a note the other day asking me to identify faculty in cognitive theory who might be able to help with a program in using augmented reality to train counter-terrorists, for counter-terrorist training programs. So what approaches work best? So it's all kinds of amazing things all over the world. But the point here is we're talking about big increases for the campus, but it's really bite-sized when you break it down to the college level. And I would also point out that building success in units with more modest funding, some of the large colleges with lesser dollars coming in over the years, may be a really good target for us. These are opportunities for us to sort of proselytize to the folks for the benefits of our research, the research enterprise. So this is the sort of a bubble diagram that comes out of our strategic planning effort over the last couple of years. These are some of the areas where we've had historical expertise, and this is the mission that ORED has developed out of that, to support a holistic, university-wide environment in which advanced research, scholarship, creativity, and economic development can thrive and support the strategic plan. I think this is a great thing to aim for, and we really haven't been doing it. We have not been executing a holistic support network for the campus research and economic development enterprise. But if we can complete this mission, we're going to do fine. So, is support for just the focal areas on that previous figure adequate? Not at all. We need to touch as much of the campus as we can, looking at emerging areas, research areas where we have great intellectual prestige, but maybe not too much in the way of research funding. We also need to balance support for arts, STEM, human sciences, social sciences, and the humanities. And we want to bring support for sponsored programs to all the areas that need it most. So to sort of wrap up, we want to identify targets that are ripe for increased proposal submissions, like, for example, where we have a lot of prowess, but maybe not too much in the way of funding historically. We want to find funding programs where we can begin to build new lines of financial support. We want to provide mentoring maybe to people who have been out of the proposal writing game for a while. We want to increase success rates for proposals of several different levels. As an example of this summer, my office did a full court press on providing sort of soup to nuts support for the NSF Career Proposal Program. So we were providing graphic support, editing support, support developing the educational theory and educational program part of career proposals that came out of the campus. And if we can increase our success rate by a modest amount there, that would bring great national prestige to us because it's a real big program, and also it brings revenue for our faculty. So we're also going to focus on large center-type proposals where we've had some success, but not as much as I'd like. And one of the ways that we're targeting this is I've asked the Center for Collaborative Knowledge on campus to look at how we can begin to catalyze convergence research, bringing together really disparate areas of research to produce very exciting new research enterprises. And so we've done that on campus, some. These have been things that have sort of popped up like mushrooms, collaborative organizations that many of us have participated in. But there's got to be a way for us to catalyze this in a deliberate way. And so I'm hoping that CCK can help us with that. There are a number of other ways that things that we're looking at. I mean, I've got a laundry list of programs that we want to undertake. But I'd just like to leave you with let the good ideas roll. Thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions that you've got. Yes?
What does that acronym SNCSRT stand for?
The Stevenson National Center for Counterterrorism Research and Training, something like that. So it's essentially, it's a network of organizations that provide a wide variety of applied research support for security threats. For example, some of you may have been on campus for a counterterrorism training and bomb exercise that was held in late July or early August. SNCSRT carried that out. They provide that kind of training across the state. They're the designated service provider to the state of Louisiana for these services.
They get their funding from DOD?
They have funding from Department of Homeland Security, from Department of Defense, from private contractors. It's a fairly wide funding portfolio, and it's big.
What kind of characteristics are you looking for in the associate VPs?
Well, we're looking for consummate scholars, but most of all, we want communicators. We want people who can come into a new territory and make themselves understood, who can listen, and who can help build teams. So it's all about, I think communication skills and listening skills and integration skills are critical.
How could it be possible, probably the Bureau of Expert Pathologist, how could you possibly put in touch the various specialists on campus to make them aware that there are certain facilities they can use? For instance, we can do any team on tissues and animals, and we can identify cancers, infections, proteins. Also, we can work on golf life. And generally, we meet our collaborators by chance at parties or the faculty club. My colleague now, I discovered he works on fish because he was elected to this group. We do a lot of work on fish. I've been advocating this for the last 8 years. I've been in this institution. So more than doing the searches by myself and proposing us, there is no guide, there is no system to put in touch with people.
Okay, 3 things. First of all, we have a network of research centers and institutes across campus. We're going to be instituting, probably in September, regular meetings of my associate vice president staff with all of the directors of those centers and institutes, just to share ideas. We're also going to be doing the same thing with the associate deans for research, or their counterparts in colleges where there is not an associate dean for research, on a monthly basis with the associate vice presidents for research out in my college. I'm also going to be meeting more regularly with deans of colleges. These 2 previous meetings, that's never happened before, so that kind of dialogue hasn't existed. Also, a number of the senior administrators and deans, associate deans, and others on campus have been using a research tool called academic analytics to help identify research networks. It's a really valuable tool, and I think it's it's expensive for us to use, but it's also underutilized on campus. And I think if more of us were able to, it uses freely available data that have been put together in very creative ways. So, for example, you could create a network diagram for the entire campus for people who study bony fishes and identify those individuals right off the bat. So there are a number of things that we can do. We can provide that kind of networking service for you if someone doesn't have access to the dashboard for academic analytics. We'll also be having these discussion groups. And we're also looking to have more innovative regular meetings where we can maybe take a topic and work through it, people all the way across campus. So, yes.
A couple of years ago, we tried to have a series of seminars where all the deans of the school were presenting.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Delia presented. It was a great talk and not very well attended. And then nobody followed up. I don't know because Chris did such a fantastic job and everybody was ashamed to follow up. So I think this initiative should keep coming and be developed.
And we need to pursue things like that and other ideas. But communication is the key, absolutely the key. Yes.
So, thank you for your presentation. It looks like we're looking for growth through ORED's connection with sponsored projects, right? So it might be naive to some, but walk me through very quickly what is it? What's in it for me to cut ORED in?
Well, if you write a grant proposal, it has to go out through our Office of Sponsored Programs.
So that's under. So I'm just.
That's under me. That's
okay.
under me. Correct.
Right.
So the way the funding system for the National Science Foundation, for many of the STEM-focused areas, is there's a charge of indirect costs or facilities administration costs that's applied to every grant that goes out the door. Now, foundations are different. They're usually not an F&A charge. And I don't know what the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for Humanities do in that regard, because I've never seen one of those budgets. Another point, though, is that we want to elevate all aspects of the scholarly enterprise. So if you are an applicant for NEA or NEH, and maybe a $25,000 grant from them is a pinnacle of scholarly performance, that's great. We recognize that that's a terribly important thing to do. It may not have the same dollar amount as an Antarctic research program that Peter Doran is doing, for example, but it's just as valuable. And so and we're all over that.
So you're already tracking through OSP. Those numbers reflect not the aggregate, but all of the research that goes through. Is it just ones that are affiliated with ORED?
That tracks all of the research enterprise that goes through LSU, except for some foundation-funded programs. Yes.
Hey, Sam, one thing would be nice for your office to track is that there's a trend happening at NSF where they're going to no deadlines in some programs. And there's a trend that no proposals get submitted when they go to no deadlines. And so it happened in an office full of programs where they went to no deadlines and they had like 5 proposals in certain competitions. So if your office could track that kind of stuff. And
we certainly could, and it's going to get a lot easier with the new grant management program that's going to be going live in a few months.
But this goes back to something very important is, well, we need to increase submission, but what about the quality? Because when we have deadlines, okay, lots of people submit, but are all of them are getting funded? And I do appreciate the effort put here on editing, looking at the career proposal. When did they start doing that?
I started the program about 60 days ago.
Great. And if, especially the junior faculty, if you want to this type of help and support, how can they get it? Is it check a link?
Well, actually, there is a mechanism for doing that. Nobody ever uses it. If you look at the bottom of the sponsored programs page, there is most people check streamline review. That's where, we just look at the budget, we look at the budget justification, the rest of it goes out the door. There's also a more detailed review option. Now that means that again, this goes against most of how many of us operate. You have to be working ahead of schedule. So you have to actually be ready to work with technical editors, and we have some very good people who can help out on this. But I visited the University of Kentucky a few months ago, and the Sponsored Programs Office there provides this really detailed support and proposal development for 700 proposals a year. That's probably 10, 20 times more than the number of proposals for which we support. Now, they've also got a larger staff, so they've built up to that. But my objective would be for us to provide that level of support for anybody who wants it, and we're trying to get there. Right now, we're starting out with like the career proposal, and then the DEP-SCORE, Defense EPSCORE program later this fall, because we can get our arms around those. They're clearly defined programs, we kind of know who might be applying for it, and we know when the deadlines are well in advance. But we're going to expand to more distributed calls as we move along.
What is your interaction with the College of Ag faculty and Ag Center people? Because most of the research for College of Ag goes through Ag Center.
Yes, that's right. It's very little. It's very little. I think the College of Agriculture sponsored programs activity that goes through ORED is orders of magnitude less in value than goes through the Ag Center. And I believe that we do provide post-award accounting support, but that's the only real connection that we have as far as in any way.
Is there any thought of like getting more traction between?
Well, I think that's been a topic of discussion for many years. So yeah, that certainly has come up, and that was probably part of the landscape during the sort of the One LSU, the Transition Advisory Team exercise that many of us went through back in about 2012. That said, there's also a 1971 state law that places a firewall between Ag Center and LSU. So, you know, I'm sure we could sort of drill some holes in it if we needed to. But
couldn't you enhance interactions?
We certainly could. We're open to that. Absolutely. As my grandfather used to say, we're ready to walk, talk, and trade. So
I know we're running a little bit short on time, but many people don't know what the Council on Research is, perhaps. I know I served on it for a little while, so maybe you could share just a
sure. The Council on Research is an advisory board of faculty who are nominated by the deans of the colleges to provide sort of objective external recommendations to the Office of Research and Economic Development. Sort of like the Faculty Senate does. It's a very independent organization. They answer to themselves, and so we want to be more activist in asking for help from that. One of the attributes of the Council on Research at present is it doesn't have representation from all the colleges on campus. That needs to be changed. So we're asking the deans for all of the academic colleges on campus to provide recommendations for new members so that we can have a full suite of representation from music and dramatic arts, art and design, science, engineering, you name it. So you know, keep your ears peeled for you know, opportunities if you're interested.
Yes, absolutely. And as Sam said, it is the line of communication to the top. So if you have a representative, most colleges are represented. I think.
But not all.
But not all. But hopefully that will expand so too the communication will improve. All right. Are there any additional questions or VP Bentley?
Well, thank you all very much. It's been a great pleasure.
And one thing to note, he is one of the few people in this room who may know where Humboldt State University is. He and I share that little tidbit, I suppose.
That's right, behind the redwood curtain.
Yeah, there you go, among other things. Thank you very much, Sam. And then, last but by no means least, our former president, Kevin Cope, will update us. Will update us on the ongoing activities, I suppose, of the Alexandria Fund.
Well, thank you very much, President Lopez, and congratulations on the spectacular organization of your first meeting in office. The office makes the woman, and the woman makes the office, and in both cases, the outlook is spectacular. And likewise, talking about the achievement represented at the front table here, the person who for 2 years now has been managing the media and other aspects of the Faculty Senate, I believe is approaching her 2-year anniversary of service in the Faculty Senate. So we'd like to recognize Susanna Knoll, who's done a spectacular job. And finally, I'd like to mention to Vice President Bentley, has he already gone to the hall? Well, in any case, he mentioned that it was somehow odd for there to be a combination of drama and geology. However, I would direct his attention to 2 19th century dramas in the minimal drama genre, which is not much prosecuted these days, in which the principal actors are the various mineral elements. If you'd like, I can send this to you. If you would like to leave these works in obscurity, that can be arranged as well.
I would like to also point out that I'm not the only senior administrator with a degree in theater.
All right, well, Mandy has taken the great step of drawing me out of the deep seas of obscurity, and indeed, sea is perhaps a good metaphor. Thomas Hobbes, the 17th century British philosopher and political theorist, compared the people to a leviathan or a behemoth, a great sleeping monster deep beneath the seas that occasionally is awakened in times of crisis or emergency. This is an apt comparison for the faculty throughout the state who constitute a gigantic interest block. There are, depending on how you count it, whether you include retirees, tenured, contingent, whatever, there are between 5,000 and 10,000 faculty members in the state. They are certainly among the most educated and articulate persons, and yet they are surely, from the standpoint of both their labor and their political influence, the least organized. So how to solve this problem and how to give something more of a voice to the faculty? Well, can't be solved overnight. Indeed, the solution has now been about 9 years in process. But in the year 2010, which was a good ways into the worst budget crisis that Louisiana has ever experienced, the Faculty Senate at LSU partnered with a number of other faculty senates around the state and with the Association of Louisiana Faculty Senates, an obscure, out-of-the-way, but behind-the-scenes influential sort of group, started a series of meetings called the Alexandria Summit Meetings, which meet in Alexandria, Louisiana, on one of our home campuses, LSU-A, LSU of Alexandria. It used to be LSU in Alexandria. It's had a few other prepositions, but such is academic fashion. I won't bore you by engaging in the academic hobby of reading the PowerPoint aloud, but simply will observe that this is an organization with a history. As I just commented, it began as a temporary faculty response to an existentially threatening budget crisis. Those of you who were here back in 2008, 2009, remember that there was a time when we were facing up to 38% budget cuts. However, that meeting was so fruitful and so entertaining and so uplifting, especially for faculty members scattered around the other 32 or so campuses in the state, that we decided to keep going. And indeed, those meetings have continued on a quarterly basis for nearly 9 years now. And indeed, the population of them has changed, turned over many, many times. So we have, through what is now an email distribution list, chronicled probably 300 to 350 faculty members who have come through the Alexandria meetings at one time or another. It's become the go-to range for faculty members who want to talk with faculty members on other campuses about the truly gigantic problems that face the state. Of course, we've heard here that we control our own destiny now. That's probably closer to the truth than it once was, but we've also got supervisors, and we've got regents, and we've got state officials, all of whom have split loyalties. Their loyalty to the governor, who appoints them, their loyalty to their districts in the state, they have loyalty to their campuses. Sometimes they move between. There are 2 or 3 regents and supervisors who have been in various boards. So these are people who are governing us, and yet do not see the educational project through the lens of an individual campus. This organization, the Alexandria Summit Network, is aiming to help faculty come to terms with the statewide nature of our problems, indeed in many cases the nationwide nature of our problems, and to find ways to interact with those who run or direct or manage or give provident advice to this state. The venue, and you are all invited to attend, because one of the strengths of the Alexandria phenomenon is that it is not limited to faculty senate officers or even to persons who are faculty senate members, but is open to anyone in higher education who has a serious interest in the perpetuation and improvement of our campuses, institutions, and indeed the higher education project generally. We have chosen to meet on the campus of LSU in Alexandria. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is the most beleaguered campuses in the state are those that either are or started as two-year campuses. The next is that Central Louisiana somehow always vanishes from the radar screen when we talk about higher education. The third is it's as convenient as possible in a wide, big state with a thin population, including a very thin population of academics. It's one of the most convenient locations that you can reach. From Baton Rouge, it's about an hour and 3/4 drive, shorter from someplace else, shares the burden equally among everyone. And indeed, if you haven't been there, it is a remarkably attractive campus. It has drawn at least 3 National Arbor Day awards and probably has more veteran oaks in place than even this magnificent campus on which we tread every day. Now, the core commitment of the Alexandria Summit meetings is to give a voice to colleagues in all systems. It'll probably come as no surprise that de facto the LSU Faculty Senate, the LSU Baton Rouge Faculty Senate, is the leading faculty senate in the state, sets the standard, and is regularly looked to by those on other campuses who are seeking some way to gain a bit more influence on their home campuses. One of the purposes of this meeting is to educate our colleagues, to let them know what the national standards and best practices are with regard to faculty governance, faculty leadership, and that sort of thing. And indeed, I would note that many of the administrations around the state that were initially skeptical, thought that this was some sort of one-off phenomenon inhabited by eccentric academics, have now taken notice. They have, in fact, sent delegates many times. Some might even say they sent spies. It's a kind of curious honor to be a target of espionage. It means that you're important. But we are getting the ear of people all the way up to the governor's office. We have had several meetings with major state officials, and that perhaps goes a lot longer than some things you can do on campus toward the achievement of goals for what I said were statewide problems. What happens at the Alexandria Summit meetings? Why should we make this semi-long trek to the very core of our state? Well, they have, over the years now, evolved into a pretty standard format. We begin with a keynote or plenary presenter who talks for a short time and then opens himself or herself to broad discussion of a very gingerly open and uninhibited sort, of the kind that you probably don't see when the cameras are present. There are no cameras at the Alexandria Summit. Some of our colleagues doubt whether they might escape retribution if they spoke too avidly, and therefore we keep all means of reconnaissance away. Next, after the keynote speaker, we have 3 collegial presentations in which colleagues from various campuses around the state, whether from the UL system or the community college system or the Southern University system or the LSU system, talk about some topic of major interest either to them or to the higher education leadership at large. Next, we have now a report from the American Association of University Professors. Louisiana has accomplished the astounding feat of electing more national officers of the AAUP than any other state in the nation, despite being very low on the rankings with regard to population and size of our academic clientele. And then we wrap it up, or perhaps we follow through with plenty of nice delicacies, a set of breakfast snacks, and then a warm lunch, which is suitably interdisciplinary and multi-ethnic. We've had Mexican cuisine, we've had Lebanese cuisine, we have Indian cuisine at one time or another, and occasionally even barbecue, always with a vegetarian option, there being nothing in the world to rival grilled eggplant and grilled pineapple. Some of our keynote speakers over the years have touched the very tops of the academic tree. You can see a few of them listed here. There are those who strike terror into the hearts of administrators like Bill Whelan, the president of SACS COC, our accrediting agency. There are what some might regard as high-level intellectuals. Senator John Kennedy. How much cleverer can you get than that fellow? We've had the Commissioner of Administration, a person who can be in two political parties at once. The Governor's Education Advisor, all four assistant presidents at all times that they've been in office. The various Commissioner of Higher Education over the years, and many, many others, including some top-level national labor organizers. Incidentally, if you think that you can't organize as labor in this state, ask yourself why it is that no less than 4 national unions have spent great sums of money sending delegates to Louisiana. Of course, they want to collect dues, but they must think that there's some possibility here as far as giving faculty options with regard to controlling their own destiny. Some outcomes. There have been many. Statewide public forums. In one amazing moment, we organized, I think, a dozen forums in different campuses across the state, all at once, many of them populated by major visible legislators. We've had recurring town halls in different regions of the state, forums for gubernatorial candidates. Of course, once those gubernatorial candidates get elected, they don't show up again, they send their deputies, but that's the way it goes. We have a very influential faculty survey of faculty contentment, which has already wrought specific changes in the way that the state government, including the Board of Regents, comports itself toward faculty members. Commissioner of Higher Education has called on us any number of times to engage in this, that, or the other committee, and of course, several other major outcomes that you all can read there for yourself without my reiterating them. This is not a group that exists in the vacuum. Over the years, we have affiliated with, or connected with, or held representatives from any of a half dozen organizations, the Association of Louisiana Faculty Senates, of course, the AAUP, the National Council of Faculty Senates, a new group that's coming out of Texas in an attempt to provide all faculty senates with a network so that they can act as a group collectively and make a bigger statement. Now, who may participate in the Alexandria Summits? Well, the answer is anyone. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Durham, North Carolina, and I saw a bus come by, and in an effort at a summit statement of diversity, the people of North Carolina had painted on the side of a bus a picture of a giraffe reading in the seat of the bus. If that giraffe should show up, that giraffe would be welcome. In other words, anybody who is a reader, a thinker, who is eager to have a favorable input with regard to higher education is welcome to come. When does this next wonder occur? It will take place at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, September 28th at LSUA, that's LSU of Alexandria, in the beautiful Live Oaks Conference Room, which is in the Student Center. We will have already some LSU representation there. The plenary speaker this time around will be Stacia, who will direct her remarks more to the statewide project of online education, and who has already been informed that perhaps some intellectual ire would be in order because there will be robust questioning indeed. Next, we will have no less than Joan King, who will be talking about her adventures in COIA, that's the Coalition on Intercollegiate Athletics. And we will have 3 other faculty presentations, which will be announced very shortly. So I'd like to invite you all, if you're free, on September 28th. It's only a short drive. The cuisine, at the very least, is wonderful. The opportunity to show that you are not going to, as our former basketball coach Dale Brown used to say, roll over and play dead, is a salient one. And I hope that you will join us where you will find enjoyable colleagues, good conversation, uplifting ideas, and an opportunity to state your case. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions for our Professor Coe? All right, thank you, sir. All right, one last order of business, and that is to elect the member of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee from among the new senators. New senator means new or returning, the first year returning back to the Faculty Senate. Susanna is pulling up a list of those who we believe are eligible. However, if you don't see your name on that list and you believe that you are, please let us know now. Okay. Do you see any missing? So, okay, so there are two additional, so these are the additional here. So that would be Doug Gilman from chemistry and Shane Stadler from physics and astronomy are additionally eligible. All right, so from among those names, may we have some nominations, self or otherwise? Yes?
I'm happy to nominate myself. I'd love to serve. My name is Dr. Marwa Afan with the College of Engineering Construction Management Department.
All right, we have one nomination. Additional?
You want to explain a little bit about what the
Sure, I'm happy to explain. The Faculty Executive Committee represents the faculty as a whole. We are your sort of segue or voice to interact with the administration on many, many levels. So we serve on many of the administrative search committees. We are divided among us. We meet regularly with the provost and other administrators to voice the faculty concerns, comments, or needs. So you will, very likely, if you're on the committee, be asked to serve on another committee, be it the library committee, the press committee, the University Council and Gender Equity Committee. So you do represent the faculty as a whole on these committees that obviously can't include someone from every aspect of the university, but we do our best to represent the faculty. And I'd say it's not overly demanding, but we do have one meeting a week that can go from an hour and a half to 2 hours. Other committee commitments are generally an hour or 2 hours a month. Search committees are a little more onerous, but they're relatively short term. Yes, ma'am.
I'll self-nominate Lauren Lazaro.
Okay, so we have Senators Lazaro and Hassan. Anyone else? All right, then if you two won't mind to step out of the room. And even with them, I suppose, out of the room, we'll go ahead and can you guys help me? We'll do vote by ballot.
Can I have more?
Mandy, can you have?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, okay. I've stumbled yet again. Let me ask the candidates to come back in and give a short little, yes?
Point of order, I'm an alternate proxy, so back when I was going to sit, I don't think alternates could vote. Does that change? Or so alternates can vote.
So I can come back in and give a little information on their background and I'm sorry. All right, so background. So, Senator Hassan.
Can everyone hear me? Thank you. All right, my name is Dr. Marwa Hassan. As I said, I'm with the College of Engineering, Department of Construction Management. My research area is infrastructure, sustainable materials. I love public service. I love working with organizations all over the nation. I've served before as the president of the Construction Research Congress. I'm currently on the executive committee of Councils of University Transportation Center, which is Proxy. The reason why I would love to serve on this committee is I believe that we have a very strong faculty senate, and working together, although it's time-consuming, everything we do is actually time-consuming, will allow us to move the university forward. Faculty governance is the most important thing, and I'm happy to serve. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Hassan. Professor Lazara.
Hi, I'm Lauren Lazaro. I'm a part of the School of Plant, Environmental, and Soil Sciences. I'm an assistant professor of production agronomy and weed science. So I deal a lot with growers on a day-to-day basis and other stakeholders. So I like to have a voice. I like to be that intermediate person. And that's just something I feel like I can do on this council as well. I'm also new blood, so I've got a lot of energy.
Thank you both, and I apologize for my atrocity. Anyway, all right, if you could please write from your choice from among the two names. We have one seat only, so please write only one name, and we'll gather those cards and give a quick count.
Pass, right or left?
Left.
Okay. We're going left.
That's right. That's your left.
All right, well, we should have the tally shortly. Other than that, I don't believe there's any new additional business unless there's something someone would like to add. It would be somewhat awkward for all of us to sit here for the next few minutes. So would it be okay to announce it by email? The winner, would it be okay to? All right. Would everyone be satisfied to have the election result distributed by email?
You can announce it at the reception, huh?
If everyone's okay with that, I'm all right.
Can I also say, what wonderful enthusiasm, and I would encourage whoever is not elected to again run next year, because I wish we could have both of you.
Absolutely.
So Lily, why didn't you tell them
All
what
right.
you're getting into being
Oh, it's
executive?
great. It's so much fun. We used to have so much fun. I learned so much.
Used to before I was president, yes.
Oh, right.
Well,
I loved it.
Food is waiting, and so do I have a motion to adjourn? And a second? All in favor?
That's all.
All right.